Welcome to today's conversation on the Women's Manifesto 2026-2030, a bold agenda charting women's path towards gender equality. Developed through nationwide consultations, this manifesto outlines what women would demand from the government as well as their political leaders. In this discussion, we shall delve into its key pillars from education to health to economic empowerment and leadership. With me to discuss this very pertinent topic is an illustrious panel whom I shall introduce from my extreme left coming in. At my extreme left is Miss Julian Naluwooza, who is the Project Coordinator Women's Leadership at Uganda Women's Network. Good afternoon and welcome to the show, Julian.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Danita.
We're extremely happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And right next to her is a familiar face on this show, I'm sure, Miss Nancy Ayot. Nancy is a feminist lawyer as well as a writer.
Thank you for having me on the show this week. I'm very happy and I would like to hear more from Julian about the manifesto. It is an in-depth one and I am happy to be in this conversation.
Yeah, equally as excited. And right next to me is a familiar face on the national scale, Honorable Dr. Miria Matembe. The Honorable Doctor is a human rights advocate. Welcome to the show. Good afternoon, Honorable.
Thank you very much. You forgot my title, Senior Citizen
and a Child of God.
Yes, the most pertinent title, Senior Citizen and a Child of God. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Turiho, Danita. I shall be your host this afternoon. So delving straight into this discussion, Julian, we shall start straight off with you. I think there is no one better placed to lead this discussion than you, seeing as this has been a project you have been very key in pushing over the last few years. So just give us a brief breakdown of what the manifesto is, what it has consisted of, the different factors you consider as you're building it up, as well as what your findings have been.
Okay, thank you very much, Danita. I'll delve into the Women's Manifesto. This is a process that we have coordinated as Uganda Women's Network over the time, ever since Uganda started the elections in 1996. We've been developing a manifesto through a participatory process. So we coordinate the women's movement, both at national level, but also in the districts, to be able to put together. This manifesto brings together different gender concerns that we see a priority to be undertaken by the leaders, by the government that gets into power, but also the political parties providing alternative policy and programming. So over the years, so far, the one you're speaking about of 2026-2030 is the fifth that we are having, which we have been able to theme as Her Voice. And this is a process that we start with the different stakeholders at different levels. We were able to do regional consultations where we bring together different stakeholders in leadership, in the informal sector, private sector, the cultural institutions, and the different women's rights organizations and civil society organizations. Equally, this was done at national level, where we still convene the same stakeholders, and we're able to reflect with the previous manifesto that ran from 2021 to 2025. From the reflections and the feedback, how far we've been able to move the journey, but also looking at what more is emerging, inform this manifesto. So it is the issues that we have currently in this manifesto that we are providing as priority areas, but also providing the key demands that we want addressed, so that we're able to have a change, so that we're able to have women attain the dignity that we look for.
And what are the key issues you found in this manifesto?
In this manifesto, of course, the issues did not differ much from the previous, but given that we were coming from a period of the COVID period, a lot changed in between there from 2021 to now. So some of the issues, this time we have 4 major priority areas.
Yes.
Previously, we've been having 5, but this time we agreed to have 4, but also have the cross-cutting areas. So our issue number one we are fronting is around human capital development, which has two areas. One is on women's health and well-being, a pertinent issue for women, where there are a lot of concerns, especially in aspects of access to maternal health, but also primary health, and also the concerns that have emerged over the period since COVID, where we are having high cases of mental health. So these are some of the issues we are fronting under women's health and well-being. Then we also have equitable and quality education for women and girls. Then issue number two is focusing on livelihood and climate justice. In these previous periods, all of us have been in one way or the other affected by issues around climate change. So under livelihood, we are trying to see aspects of climate justice, but also aspects around women's economic empowerment. Then issue number three is focusing on the social norms and violence against women and girls. Of course, we've had a number of discussions where we see a spike in violence against women and girls across the country. From the reportings, from the different researches, this is quite a pertinent issue that we need to focus on as stakeholders as we move forward. Then issue number four is around women and ICT, information communication and technology. We saw from the COVID era, there was a lot of a shift into the use of IT. And when we find in there are a lot of pertinent issues that affect women and girls from accessing and also affording. So it became a major issue in this manifesto, though in the previous it was a cross-cutting issue. Then the cross-cutting areas we have this time, we have three of them, and one is on women, leadership and decision-making. We felt that amongst the four I've highlighted earlier, it's important that all through we see the participation of women in leadership to be able to address some of the matters in therein. Then we have corruption and the gender impacts. Given a number of reports from the different across the country around corruption and how it has affected access to service delivery, we felt it's something that we need to look into, so that because when there is a poor service delivery, women and girls really suffer. If it's in health, you see a number of deaths. If it's in education, how is the quality of education that the girls are receiving? Then lastly is around the women, peace and security. And we are looking at both angles, peace and security. Of course, there's the peace where people think about the wars and what, but also peace starting from the community, peace starting from the home. Yes.
Okay. A few questions, follow-up questions in that regard. How long did it take ONET to develop this manifesto? And just if you could have like a number of the participants you had, just a highlight of the number of the participants you had.
We started this journey last year, around July, August, where we started off with the consultative processes. And we just concluded the process this year, where we had the document finally launched after the different consultative processes, but the validation processes to have the different issues aggregated. Of course, the issues were quite many that came out from these consultative processes, but at the end of the day, we were able to aggregate to have those areas I've highlighted. For the numbers, I might not have them offhand, but we reach out to quite a big number of people physically, but we also used online platforms to get the issues from the communities.
Okay, thank you so much, Julian. You mentioned this is the 5th manifesto that UNED has produced for women in Uganda. Just to give us a brief background of the 2021-2025 manifesto, how well has it been implemented? Well, the stakeholders that, in this case, the government, are they receptive towards the needs of women? Have they been cognizant of them, and have they taken steps to implement that particular manifesto?
Yes, the previous manifesto, of course, that time it came, we're able to launch it out. It was a time of the COVID. A lot was happening in aspects of access. How do we engage? But however, some of the concerns we had there there's been uptake, but of course not to the larger extent that we expected from especially the political leaders and the government. A few steps have been taken to achieve some of the demands that we provided there, but of course there were a number of gaps that were not addressed, and these are some of the gaps that we've been able to carry on in this manifesto. The uptake by other stakeholders, because as you see the manifesto, while we say it's a political document to government, elected leaders, decision makers, but it's also a key document that informs programming by the different actors, including civil society. So you've seen a number of uptake from other stakeholders carrying on the issues in their programming so that they're able to address some of the gaps that were highlighted therein.
Okay, can you just give us a brief highlight of what the concerns were in the 2021-2025 manifesto and what you saw the government implementing, the steps the government took to implement in particular?
In the 2021 manifesto, the Have Voice, Your Mandate, the concerns, we had 5 priority areas, and one of it was women's health and well-being. We had quality education for women and girls, women's economic empowerment, and access to land and property rights, then women's leadership and decision making. So some of the changes that would highlight from therein, for example, under the women's health, one of the concerns was maternal mortality, where we were seeing a number of deaths by women. You realize during the COVID, actually, the situation worsened because of the measures that had been put there, that access to health facilities was quite a challenge. So by then, the maternal deaths was at 336 per 1,000 births. But when you reflect recently from the statistics that were released by the Ministry of Health, we've had a bit of a reduction in that area, where we see that it's now at 189, though it is still quite high. Imagine 189 women dying. So it's still quite high, but at least there's a bit of the reduction. We had proposed an increment in the national budget on health to meet some of the commitments Uganda has made. We made commitment under the Abuja Declaration, the Maputo, which is at 15%. So there have been slight changes, about 1.1 from 5. We got a little bit to 6.5, but we've not yet made that commitment we made of the 15%. But at least we've seen a little bit of increment in the budgets, and hopefully they will get higher as per the commitments we have made. Then on the quality education, one of the concerns was around the unsafe environments for girls in school, a lot of violence against children. So over the period, we've seen the government coming up with some policies to be able to curb some of those concerns. In the 2021, we saw a spike in teenage pregnancies that affected the girls' education. But we saw government coming in with a policy to see that while this, the girls get pregnant, they're able to be provided to go back to school and be able to continue with education after they give birth. So, of course, the implementation is still a gap in some areas, but at least there was a step to have policy that can be followed by different stakeholders to be able to address that vice. When we see on economic empowerment, we've seen government coming up with some more programs that are trying to address that gap. Of course, there are gaps in there, but at least the programs are in place to be able to economically empower the women.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Julian. I believe that has been a very, very in-depth introduction to this. I feel very well vested with information following that. Thank you. Honorable Miria,
Why do you come to me?
Honorable, I think this is a question that you will best placed to deliberate on, given your historical context. So the question is in regards to the political will of the government to implement these particular issues. You have been someone who has been at the forefront of the women's movement in Uganda, but more so in regards to the political realm of it all. Have you noticed that over the last 5 elections, or over the last 5 governments, that where there has been maybe a change in the political will of the government to implement things for the best for women, things such as the Women's Manifesto?
Well, for me, I'm not in these bodies like the NGOs who used to do. I'm not in practical performance, or in I'm at home seated in my house, and I just watch and see. And if you ask me as to whether women are doing better now, I would say they are not. Why would I say that? Because you don't know what we were doing in order to achieve what we eventually achieved that moved the women forward. The women's voice was very crucial in decision making, in policy making, and all that kind of thing. And we would follow up the implementation of what we have made. Okay? And the civil society organizations were very vibrant, and they were the ones even helping in most of these things. Now, when you tell me, for instance, during that time of COVID, I can't remember, because I was very, very active while others were in the house. People would run to me, the girls are raped, the women are being beaten, and I was busy working as if I was the minister or whatever. And I knew how many girls were defiled, thousands who even created what do you call it, the home for the
Shelter.
a shelter, yes, with this organization. What is it? I've forgotten, senior citizen. They forget. But we formed a shelter and where we were keeping all these women, so many girls raped by the parents, even the nieces, the nephews, the whatever, and the violated women who were keeping there. There were so many, thousands of girls who were defiled and that kind of thing. Where are they? Now, if you tell me that, well, they said when they are pregnant, they can go back to school. Where are those girls? I have always wondered, all those thousands of women, what happened to them? I'm not the minister. I am not the NGO to follow up. I don't know, but I don't know what happened to them. And then this whole issue of the culture, of the parents, of the schools. You pass a policy that even when the girl child is pregnant, she can always go back to school. What mobilization is going on with the girls, the mother, the parents, who say that once the girl is pregnant, they made them marry those men by force, and they torture them and beat them. Because I'm not now in this active work, I don't know how that is done. It would appear that, well, the policy is there, but there is no mobilization. I don't hear women leaders like parliamentarians or what, shouting out there, mobilizing parents to tell them, please, it's unfortunate the girl got pregnant, but it's okay. This is not the end. Because you need to mobilize. We used to go and mobilize those parents, and in order to change the cultural attitude. You talked of the cultural norms. My problem is that the cultural norms which we had even broken through have now rebuilt themselves. If you want to know, you don't know the fights I'm handling with these the pastoralists. The pastoralists now have gone back to love their cows more than the girls. We had to fight these child marriages. They have increased tremendously, especially in pastoristic areas. People prefer their cows. When I asked them, they said, during COVID, our girls got pregnant. Instead of losing them in pregnancy before marriage, we would rather marry them out and get our cows. So such things are going on. And then also in health, when you see, have you visited these hospitals? You ever go to the labor wards?
Yes.
Have you ever gone to labor wards?
Yes.
To see those women on the floor, to see how
Kawempe.
they are suffering, to see even to deliver, you have to first pay something. Have you seen what is going on? The other time when I had my sister friend Jory Mugisha, she passed on in September. When I was forced to carry her to go to intensive, when I went to Mbarara Hospital, ask me. You see, when you are not sick, you don't go to these hospitals. But now you get sick or you go to see your patient. That's when you know practically what is happening in these hospitals. Yes, the data may come and say, and the Uganda government, I know they fake data. They do. They when you go, you see they will fake with documents and say the statistics have increased from here to here and that kind of thing, in order to tell the public that things are well. But for me, it is not the statistics which show me. It is the very, when you go and see what is happening in the hospital, and then you go to schools. I sit in my home. And I see all these schools, primary school, under the trees. I see how the girls get in, like they are 100 girls. By the time of P6, you find they have all gone. Where do they disappear? So I really don't know. What I know is that when we got on the scene, things changed tremendously. But now you look at violence against women. And now it has even turned into violence against men. How are we going to look into this? The impact of women's empowerment, Simeon, on families. And I don't know where you place family in the manifesto. But for me, since I believe that a family is a very strong institution created by God, and the values and the norms, the morals that govern can make a nation stable and inculcated and nurtured within the families. But do you look at the current families, what is happening these days? Somebody was telling me actually that, Miria, you need to get into judiciary and see the women of judiciary. That many judges, judicial officers, that the divorce rate in judicial officers is too high. Somebody was making, what do you call it, a call, tipping on me to go and see how I can get these judicial officer women, judicial women, to really get back into families. So I come here to talk. I wouldn't give you specific evidence, but these people who are participating, for them, they see what is happening in figures and whatever. But for us, we see with the eyes, and then we wonder whether we are making a great change. And in terms of politics and decision making, really, the political environment itself, which has made the president the ultimate decision maker, where parliament cannot decide on the budget and conclude the budget. Whether you say you ask for a budget, the women in parliament do not have the power and the authority to ensure that the budget allocation is going according to what. Because even the men themselves are not the determinant now. The authority to appropriate the budget has now changed from parliament into the hands of the president. When they say this is what we want and it goes to him, he say, no, you remove this, and put this and put that. So I wonder how, whether we put our request or whatever, whether it will ever be considered. I don't want to be negative, but me, I'm looking at the practical things and the priority. Did you look at the budgetary priority of Parliament, of the government? Where do they put their main budget? And in that main budget, what is the percentage of the women that are involved in the reception and utilization of that budget? So that's my comment. I don't want to be negative, but I see what happens on the ground.
Thank you, Honorable, for that very realistic take on things on the ground. Nancy, I will bring the discussion to you right now, particularly from the lens of you're a young member of the women's movement.
Yes.
And I'm sure as a young member of the women's movement, there are things that you have witnessed, things that you have seen, steps that you have taken in regards, steps that you have witnessed in regards to accountability and the like, in that particular space. Do you believe that the movement as it is now is first, and there's been many
Is the movement still there, by the way?
We're going to hear from Nancy about
You see,
that.
before she speaks, I'm sorry if I'm to intervene, but I've been very concerned about the women's movement in relation to the passing on of distinguished women within the movement. When they've been passing on, and all I see as women's movement is we are there with our old people, and we wonder what about today? Now when we go, who is there for us? I remember with the Madame Sisogwa, I had to look for Rita. When Mpanga died, Rita was not around. So I suffered, I looked, I tried to mobilize really women, where are you? We've got to go and see of our sister. If you know what happened in the end, I found myself standing in Namirembe with this young lady from Forward. And we were not even getting a platform to do what? To speak as the women's movement, having lost our hero. They were nowhere. And then this time when Sister Rita was there, so she helped me mobilize. They even made a wreath, went to Parliament, and in the evening they were there. But come on church on Sunday, maybe they are on virtue, maybe they are virtual. On the body itself, I had to fight to be given a platform to speak about Sister Ogwaro. And then this now our very strong woman who with peace and conflict resolution, Jessica Babihuga, who has passed on. We were there at the vigil, only we, the historical colleagues. We didn't see the young women's movement. Then in the church, they said, Gayaza, come and speak, distinguished Gayaza girls. And then we also, with Terem, with our movement, our historical, we were there at church and we talked, few of us. And then in Sinjiru, they even never mentioned the movement, the women. I had to say, hey, they said the friends from Gayaza. I said, hey, what about women's movement? And I grabbed the microphone to talk about this feminist woman. But in the meantime, none of our predecessors and the next generation to me and the next one, which is these ones now, I didn't see. So movement means it must continue. So why, if we are finished, our category, if we are send off by our own selves, where will the movement be? I was thinking about it very deeply and seriously. So when you say the movement, that's what inspired me to say, by the way, are you there?
I will answer Honorable's question on the movement later on. But like when Honorable was speaking, I was listening to her too much that I forgot your question. Please repeat it.
You are very concerned.
Yes.
Okay. No, my question was in regards to the status of the women's movement. There has been so much that has been going on in that particular space, from funding to, the shrinking civic space, to a lot of people, especially if you look at it from the NGO world in particular. There is a lot that is happening from so many angles. So do you think that the space as it is right now is equipped to hold, in particular, the government accountable for this next phase of the 2026-2030?
Thank you very much. So I am going to approach this in regards to the feminist governance, which is what the manifesto is readily about. Shaping laws, making sure that, the women are brought into the equation, including the feminist perspectives into the law. And I would like to say first that we understand the political environment that we are in. For weeks over, we've been in this showroom talking about what is possible and what is not possible within Uganda as we see it today. And we know that a lot of things are not possible, and a lot of accountability is not met. And that is why I like the preamble of the manifesto, because it talks about it subtly addresses the fact that, we had a proposal similar to this. However, we acknowledge that some improvements have been made. However, we are re-emphasizing the things that we said 5 years back. And for holding a government accountable, I don't think there is much that we can do except continuous advocacy for the things that we already know. And we know that a lot of the advocacy has shifted online because of the shrinking civic space. And the fact that many organizations have been discontinued, their permits revoked, their offices closed. Some are operating in secret. You have to go through several doors before you can find the organization, because when the government cracks the whip, it comes for them, and it comes for them hard. So it is extremely difficult to operate in this space, but I believe that within the context of what's happening, we are trying our best. But also we are adapting to new challenges. We are adapting to new challenges, especially challenges to do with the regress on women's rights, because there is work that has been done by Dr. Honorable and her colleagues during that time, and then it regressed, because even with the regress of democracy, people do not see the coloration, but where democracy regresses, also the people suffer. And where people suffer, women are largely marginalized because of their vulnerabilities, especially in terms of economic empowerment and ownership of property, but also agency, because that is a thing. So there is lots of work being done. However, there are so many challenges that we have to overcome. But also the generational gap that we talk about is because people have taken civil society or the women's movement work as employment, as permanent employment, instead of activism, for what you find lacking in your society, or what is not happening right. That perhaps maybe Ayot Nancy, I'm passionate about governance in relation to women, then I will come out of my own violation and speak. That when I come to Civic Space TV, I am not exactly representing an organization, but I'm here on my behalf as a woman of Uganda who sees the challenges and who wants to speak to the challenges and who wants to contribute to certain initiatives. Having said that, we also need to look at the youth unemployment problem. Because it is catchy to say that I am allying with a cause. Because it makes you look good.
Yes.
It makes you look good.
Yeah.
And many of us have had to learn from this, that not all work will be paid. Now I am not saying that go out there and get exploited, because there is labor that must be paid for. But there are certain things when you attach yourself to certain causes, when you attach yourself to. I know a lot of people do it to look good, number one, but also to get the opportunities to earn money. And I think this is where we see a different breed of people coming into
For
our
sure.
spaces. They come into our spaces with the expectation to earn, and they take up spaces for people who are genuinely caring for the cause, or people who genuinely needed the community. But also the fact that intergenerational conversations are not as many as they should be. Intergenerational conversations are not as many, because we need to learn from those who were there before. I had the privilege one time of attending a feeder conversation, and it was on wellness. And Honorable Miria, you were there. It was that side of Mbuya. They brought you into the conversation, and you were talking about wellness from your time, and wellness as people see it today. And I felt that conversation was so insightful because it had different perspectives. There were about just two generations speaking, but also it did not demystify what wellness would mean for a young person, because now a young person in the room had the leave to ask questions, but not the room to ask questions to Honorable Miriam, because there are questions, but not the room to actually give real perspective of what wellness is for me, unemployed. Okay, I am not unemployed, but for a person who is unemployed, looking for space and looking for money all the time and trying to make it in a country that is difficult to make it in, or in a time where it is extremely to make it in things. So I think if there were more conversations like that, perhaps we would have had the perspective. But also Honorable Miria's perspective may not be the same as the perspective of another woman of her generation, because this is stories of women sharing, and where a person does not identify with Honorable Miria, they could identify with another person. So it is crucial that more spaces are created like this, and it's a challenge that the women's movement should take on, because aside from the fear and the glorifying and putting the people before us on a pedestal as though there is no room for conversation, there should be also another room to actually ask that what is going on here and what is not happening here. Which also brings me to another point that I found really concerning, because it was on. I expected to see at least a paragraph on the well-being of older women. The well-being of older women, the women who have retired,
Who are suffering.
Yes.
Who went away without pension or anything, and those who have it, by the way, and they can't be paid.
And they can't be paid, and they can't access.
People think that Banyankore are okay, they have everything. But I saw in Mbarara, the Banyankore in Mbarara, Ukashari, Mbarara district. I saw them on the TV. They older than me, very old, and they were crying. You people, help us. We don't get our pension. So many months we are not getting. And I really said, but surely these are people, but it is their fault. They elected representative, and I offered myself to be their mouthpiece, and they bought them in my presence, and now they got the 5 members of parliament, including one who represents all women citizens. What has he ever spoke, or what do? They went there and they are enjoying their allowances. What change have they made? And yet they are there, you see. They are suffering. Being chased out of the land, they call Matembe. I tell you.
This is not to say that the document was not all round, because I felt like it addressed, it was very representative of what many women in this country say, and I just felt like that bit was missing a little bit. However, I liked it very much because it addressed the current challenges, including IT, climate change, and all those things. I also want to speak to the fact that in this country today, feminist governance is very difficult, but not just today, but I think also over time, because going to law school, one of sitting in my family law class or gender and the law class, one of the things that I would say is that this bill was brought forward, but it was sent back. because of this particular clause on marital rape or this particular clause on this.
Cohabitation.
Yes. So yes, all those clauses, you see. So it is extremely difficult being in governance there, because some people I think ideally go there with the mind that they're going to make the changes. But when you go there, not only do you need numbers, but you also need people to back you up when you're saying some of these
You
things.
see,
And
it is a struggle. Let me tell you, like I always tell you, that gender equality and women's empowerment is a journey.
Yes.
It is a journey which must be walked by both men and women.
Yeah.
And it can only be walked by both when they all understand the importance and the value of gender equality and women's empowerment, which we used to do. We used to go mobilizing, and telling people, please, a woman is so crucial to humanity, and therefore she needs to be set free to exercise her talents, to develop her skills, so that she may use them to serve the humanity for the sake of advancement of the nation. But now, who is there out there? Really tell me, who is there out there to run with that message? I don't think, I'm sorry if I'm underrating people, but I don't think that people are still there running with that message. Even the question of gender equality, which we are running with, I'm sorry to say, but the young women now, they instead of still run with the basics of empowering women and moving them further, they turned sort of gender equality into the feminist. And the type of the feminist now was addressing, if I want to be a man also, if I want to be that kind of, I will say, nonsense, because that one should come much later, when everybody is now empowered, when all women, when I went to Germany long ago, when I was still young, coming up with the fire of the movement, and I went to Germany to address the people in Germany about the challenges of women, because we wanted them to empower us, to support us. And I wrote my very good presentation and went, and that was 1990s there, when we had not even reached very far. And after I had presented this very good presentation, expecting to get very good response and so on, the question that rose was about to, what about abortion? What are you dealing with abortion? And the other one was sexual orientation. What about the sexual orientation? But good enough, I had known what this means. And I was very clever. I told them, I've told you the rate of infant mortality, maternal mortality. We are craving for children. You are craving for people are craving for children. They want to produce children who grow beyond 5 years. And now, how can we come with what? With abortion? We are already having our natural abortions which are coming out. Therefore, we are now concentrating on how we can keep our pregnancies to grow and come out into babies. Therefore, we cannot now go into abortion. We cannot go into sexual orientation because we want to grant children. And so now we are focusing on the priority. Once we have reached the levels where we are, then we shall learn from you how to move forward on those other issues. And of course, they clapped, and the ambassador said, "Oh, Miria, you have saved me. I thought you are going to tell them you people are hopeless." But I didn't tell them that. But now, when you ask the young women's movement about equality, feminism, and so on, they're saying the other day, when we were discussing the law, the marriage law, which has never come, which have been my very biggest disappointment. This young woman said, "But what if I also want to marry more than 2 men?" I said, "You foolish girl, shut up." I mean, you cannot bring such issues at a time like this. There must be time for everything. But that's why I'm telling you now, when we used to run with the real issues, we broke through somehow. We reached somewhere because of mobilization. But now you are talking of regress, which is true. Retrogression, you know, it has been caused by lack of political will for women's advancement, and the political environment which constrains the political space. But nevertheless, even if those were there, the people now who are getting in positions of power, like she was saying, are not driven, are not service driven, are not visionary driven to say, where are we taking women? Many of them are driven by their own self-ambition. Most of the leaders are not driven by vision. Vision which is about mobilizing others to get the good for themselves. But now, most of them are driven by personal ambition. When I get into this position, how do I get better? How do I do better than others? So that is also a very big challenge. Because if leadership was not driven by personal ambition, but driven by vision to carry women forward, whether there is no space, at least the women who are in politics, who are members of parliament, who are councillors, they would be running still with that message to help women come up. But now they are involved in how to get better, how to go back into politics, so the whole thing, the journey now, I think, is halted. I think the journey is halted and going into reverse. We shall need a vibrant. You see, when we came and found the Mpangas, the late Joyce Mpanga, rest his story in peace, they were working, talking, trying, but the environment was just shut down. It was not conducive for their progress. Now, what helped us? When we came on the public platform, the environment was so open, so inviting. They were inviting us, where are you? That's when we came with Action for Development, reviving FIDA, reviving all these organizations. And so we went, blast and mobilized and reached where we reached. But now, with the closure, and that's why I learned from my personal experience that the extent to which the journey for gender equality and women's empowerment will move forward depends on the political environment. The political environment in which we are operating, and on the political will to genuinely embrace the women's cause and support them. Right now, what has happened is that women are now being used. They are being used to advance the agenda of the government, which is not necessarily to practically and realistically advance the women's cause. But you find that's why I say that women in Uganda now are on the table like menu. For us, we are at the table. When you are at the table, you pick the menu and you see how you deal with it. But now they are on the table. They cannot influence the direction. And it is not their fault, because that's what has happened to the political environment, which is not promoting popular participation, citizens' participation for the betterment of their lives. What runs the leadership now is the betterment of the leaders themselves at the expense of the people they lead.
Thank you. That was the thought that I was bringing, and I was saying that when women get into these spaces, they try to collaborate, and in trying to collaborate, they start co-opting, conniving. Yes, they become co-opted, and they look like connivers, whether they like it or not. The thing is, when you compromise too much on key issues or on the issues that took you there, there is no way you're going to present them forward. Instead, you're going to present the agenda that is not inclusive of what women want, But also to address our current issues, I think that we need, like Honorable Miria said, a new vibrance. Yes, like a rejuvenation of what. Yes. But also we need to encourage local philanthropy. Like, we need to contribute to the causes that matter to us, because there are lots of women who can come in and contribute. We need to woo women in business, bigger women in business. We need to woo women in tourism to contribute to the greater political to contribute to address the greater political challenges that we face. And if we can grow our philanthropy here, we will not suffer gaps like when the donor doesn't show up, you can't implement for 3 months until after the money comes. So a lot is needed, but also coming to the table to just speak about issues is nice, and give people transport refund is nice, but implementation is better. The civic space is strained, but we need innovative ways to carry on.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nancy. Julian, back.
Actually, I was picking it up from where she was sharing and what Honorable highlighted.
Yes, please.
Of course, in respect the mobilizing, the organizing, like she highlighted, the space is shrinking. So as the movement, we also need to reorganize, get other innovative ideas. How do we keep this message moving? Because the activism that was there then at the time, Honorable and colleagues were doing the activism, we are unable to do it now in the political environment, like what Honorable highlighted. So we need to reorganize and get other ways. How do we carry this activism and bring everyone on board, like it was despite the environment we are operating in?
But also, I think I think the movement has been proactive. That's why there is still a semblance of what the movement is. That's why we can still publish a manifesto today, because it has been proactive in trying to organize. If we cannot meet physically, let's meet online. Let us hide the space of those who are being attacked by authorities. Let's not give away our friends who are being persecuted. They've been very proactive, and perhaps that's why we still have people joining and people who are very positive about the women's movement today.
Okay, thank you so much, Nancy. Julian, I would like to pose a few, so that we gain a greater understanding of where we're at, right? When we've had multiple discussions about, when your politicians or people entering the space for their own benefit and the like, I'd like to speak to you particularly about the women parliamentarians, right? In regards to 2021-2025, because we say we want government to implement, but women parliamentarians are there historically to also help push the movement. And how did you find their reception to the 2021-2025 manifesto to be? And, in regards to not just their attempts to understand it, but their attempts to see it through to its fruition, as well as if they had any backlash, if they had any issues making it harder for them to operate.
Okay, thank you. Of course, the parliamentarians we've had in this period, in the 11th Parliament, like picking it up from Honorable, there are those that have had the will. Even if some of us are able to see the discussions of the parliament sessions ongoing, you'll find that there are those that have the will, that have been able to try to push the issues, the agenda, the women's agenda, as highlighted. But like Honorable highlighted, of course, for the agenda to go through, it needs a certain percentage. And if we have a few who have the passion, who have the drive to push this agenda, in most cases you find there are just a few of them in there, and then the others are not able to support the agenda. And that takes what Nancy highlighted about the backlash. It's not just within the spaces we are in, but it's almost everyone women's rights. So while there are those who are pushing the agenda, others are not pushing the agenda. So the backlash is able to hit, and that's how some of the issues that we would wish to see advancing are not able to advance.
Okay.
Can I say something? I also find that some of the parliamentarians do not understand the women's issues. Yes, in relation to what they're supposed to present on the floor. You find them spreading a man's narrative on the floor instead of the women's. And for me, that it gives me pain, because every time that happens, like Honorable usually says, that people call her and say, what is happening with this gender equality people? You see what your gender equality has brought. What have your representatives brought to the floor? And like we said, it goes back to voters. Vote right. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to take a person who is going to just shame their opponent to the floor because you want a woman representative who has not been shamed, instead of a person talking about key issues, you will not get the representation that you need.
Yes,
Let
and,
me tell you,
yes.
the child, I always imagine. I'm sorry, I don't want to demean people, but I always imagine how many of those women who are in parliament who can be invited. Like they keep inviting me, Women's Day, what, all over the place. Who can be invited to talk about the issue of this gender question? And they come and they really make a presentation that people will say, oh, now we understand. I am really wondering how many. Because surely those people who go to parliament, you can even see them now, those on the photos, on the pictures, on the whatever. And I look at them and say, people just want to go to parliament. I wish they could stop going on the women's seat. Because you see, this woman, district woman representative, was very, very deliberate. One of the reasons why we created affirmative action was that the seat was to enable women get into decision-making positions, because culturally and normally they were left out. And yet they have another side. What they have in their brains is not what men have. And so we are saying, when you sit at the decision-making table and you are men only, the decisions you are making are missing something. They are not going to be humane-oriented decisions, because men are mechanical. And that's why God decided to create a woman to fill the gap in there. Therefore, when you go at a table and make decisions without a woman participating, you are missing out a very crucial perspective on this decision. So that was point number one. Therefore, because culture does not allow women to go there, let us create affirmative action so that women go there to take the women's perspective into the decisions which are made. Number two, because women were discriminated against and they were treated unfairly, and they were all those things that we are fighting. Now that they are there, their voice, because they say the one who wears the shoe is the one who knows where it pinches most. So if a woman is there, when they are discussing maternal mortality, the woman will know. She's the one who gets pregnant. She's the one who dies in pregnancy. You can imagine men sitting and discussing this maternal infant mortality. They have nothing to do with these pregnancies. They have nothing. They don't know why women periods, when we speak of sanitary towels. You think men, they don't know. When we are there, they don't see girls wearing whatever. So when you are saying menstrual these towels, they don't understand it. So we say, okay, the girls, the women who are there, who know what it means to have menstrual period and you don't have the pads, will go there and really pursue it, because they will speak about it, because it pinches most. They know it most. And that was why that seat was created, for those two specific reasons. But do the women who go there knowing that that is what is taking them? In fact, women who come on the main constituency, they say, me, I'm not a woman. I used to abuse, there's this woman from Arua who is now, she was a minister in exile, but recently I read that she's coming back. For you don't know. She's coming, the one who was a minister in social security, minister of gender. She ran away when the Muhezi stole money. And you don't know these things, you are young people. I've forgotten her name. She's from Arua, West Nile. Recently, I read that she's back. She's been staying at Salim Saleh's place, and President Museveni was going there to receive her, that kind of thing long ago. She was a minister for a constituency. And one time she stood at Parliament and she was talking. Me, I'm not a woman. And I was in the canteen there. I saw it on TV. I came running to shut her down. But by the time I reached the Parliament, she had sat down. And there are those, when they are on the main constituency, me, I'm not a woman. Me, I'm not a woman. Because they are not on the constituency. They were demeaning even the woman's seat. So they don't understand, many of them, and they were saying, why are we given bigger areas? And which bigger areas?
It's the affirmative.
When they are giving them big areas because it was a special seat created. If you don't want to be in a big area, go to the main constituency. Nobody's denying you. But because they don't know, they complain, we have bigger areas. Why shouldn't we reduce the area? As if I was representing almost the whole of Ankole, 49 sub-counties and 10 counties when I was a member of parliament, all my period. But I reached all those areas because I knew I would focus. For me, all these members of parliament were my colleagues. And when it came to the issues, mortality, these maternities, the violence in the men beating women, my colleagues would come and tell me, that man is torturing. I would be the one to go and sort out the matter. Because they would be fearing for their constituents. But me, I would go there fiery and sort out those issues. But now, these women, they don't pay any specific on the woman question. They are also bring coffee. They bring coffee. They bring hose. They have not concentrated on the gender question as one of the reasons why they went there. They don't.
And when you see from some of the conversations that we've had, where we've had some of them in the room, when the gender question comes, the issues around women's agenda, and for example, like WOPA is calling for a united front on some of the issues, you find some of the leaders saying, let me first consult from my colleague within the constituency. So even when they believe in the cause, sometimes the question of, let me first consult from this other person. So whatever feedback they get from the consultations, they're able to front something.
And consult their party.
Yes.
Forgetting that the question, the agenda question, is not a party question. It cuts across. When it is mortality, whether you are NRM, whether you are NUP, whether you are what, you are dying with your babies. But they don't do that. I think also the partisan politics have had a tremendous impact on the journey itself, because you can't depart from what your party thinks, and your party does not prioritize the gender issues. They prioritize other issues, and because you don't want your party to lose you have to agree with what they want. So that is also a challenge to them.
Okay, thank you so much. Julian, as we come to the close of the show, rather, my question to you is 2026, 2030. Do you believe there is going to be any significant difference in regards to this particular manifesto?
I would like to be positive that there will be that change. Of course, the change will come when all of us are able to join to push the agenda. And that's why you see the manifesto for this period, it's named Her Voice. We need a voice. And getting back to the previous discussions about the movement building, the organizing, all of us, it's important, whether young, old, whatever it is, we need to join and have one voice to push this agenda as a united front. And with that, we feel with the continuous engagement, the activism on the issues, the mobilizing on the issues, we shall be able to make the change that we hope to have. So we call upon different stakeholders to join for us, so that it's not seen as a document that is maybe for an institution. It's our document. Let's own it. Let us make it a living document, use it in whatever spaces, so that we're able to see the change. The more we are, the more voices out there, the more we shall have many listen to us and take note of the concerns that we are presenting.
Okay, thank you so much, Julian. So ladies, we have come to the close of the show. I would like to ask you to give your closing remarks, still from Julian, moving into Honorable. Please, Julian, proceed with your brief closing remarks.
I thank the listeners, and in my closing, I'll just leave a quote which highlights that I alone cannot change the world, but if I cast a stone, it can cause more ripples. So if all of us cast that one stone into this to push the women's agenda for gender equality and women's empowerment, many ripples we shall see.
Thank you so much, Julian.
Thank you.
Nancy, please proceed.
Thank you. What I liked most while reading this document was the fact that it was written with a mandate that we deserve accountability. Yes. We deserve the things that we are representing forward. And for me, that is the message that I got throughout the document. Because while we are thinking, oh, is this feasible? Is this possible? I feel like that is hardly the point. The point is, it is what we deserve. It is the agenda of the women. It is what the women of this country should look forward for. It is what we fight for every day. And for me, that gives me a sense of satisfaction that we're speaking the truth to a lot of things. And also within the document, with the coloration of different things like gender-based violence and the participation of women in politics, it makes it clear that the reason why we didn't achieve these things in the last 5 years, in the last term, are these reasons, and it's why we are bringing back these issues. So for me, to close, I would like to ask everyone who is in the women's movement, who is allies with the people of the women's movement, or who just cares about the humanity of the people of Uganda and generally the democracy in terms of inclusion and accessibility to all the things that all Ugandans need, to talk about this a little bit more, to talk about it more, and to advocate for what is right. Because right now that the truth and what is true and what is false, the line has been blurred, and it even comes into statistics that some things are not included. That is why we are not using the census for elections, because for some reason they didn't get the right data. Mm-hmm. So people need to speak the truth and stick to it, but also to jump off fake news and fake narratives that are out there to help us achieve the goals that we need, because it dilutes the cause for what is right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Honorable Doctor?
Well, for me, I want to thank our unit. And I'm so glad some of these people don't even know the founders of UNIT. But I'm so glad that it has lived up to this time. Because I remember the day when we formed it there at where is that Catholic place? In Rubaga there. Where is it, the church or what? I've forgotten. When we formed it, Bambi, with even the late Mrs. Nwechona around. And we said, let's unite as women NGOs, form ourselves into a network, which will be organizing us to gather our views and we speak with one voice. I'm so glad that even despite the challenges that my dear Rita has gone through, fighting for this movement, for the gender question, you are still resilient and determined to stay. Because nobody will ask you, when you are saying you women are not doing what you want, you members are not doing, nobody will say, what did you want? Because when I was campaigning, people would say, but what did you do there? I say, what did you want? Did you tell me what you wanted? Me, I would read for them what I had told them I would do. And I said, this is what I told you. So they will not question and say, these women are just talking. What have they done? At least, and I want to see how you follow it to make it a campaign agenda. I hope you have a process on how you are going to make it a campaign agenda, so that when these people are campaigning, these issues are raised to them in their campaign. whoever is campaigning. I hope we try to get these candidates who are going to contest and put them to question. What about this? What are you going to do? Otherwise, I want, having thanked you for that resilience, I want to say like the other Martin Luther King, is it King Jr., who said that if you can't run, if you can't fly, at least run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, at least crawl, but continue moving. So women's movement, through your net, you continue. Whether they will take it on board, whether they don't take it on board, you continue, because like she says, you will not be questioned as to why were you quit. You have done it. You have launched it. You are going to present it to the parties. You are going to question those parties. What are you taking? You organize, tell them by the way, organize to go and present this manifesto to every party.
Yes.
You go and organize, they give you a platform, you present it to them, so that next time we shall be questioning them. So I wish you the best. Me, I'm available. If you want me to be a party to go into those parties and say here, then we can. But again, I think we need to raise our voices and say, no, women, enough is enough. We are going to abandon the party which is not doing what we want. I wish women could have that courage and say no. Instead of, I see them saying, we Museveni's women, they are in yellow. We Museveni's women. Did you marry them? So stop that nonsense. I want to tell women to stop that nonsense and be serious and raise up and say, here we have our manifesto. Any party which doesn't take up our manifesto, we are not going to vote you. We can shout it loud and shake them. Why do you think people are telling lies about me, saying that, saying wrong things about that I prefer Museveni to Simanyi, to Bobby Wine, that Museveni should continue? Because they are scared. They have seen me talk. Now they are twisting my language because they know people may follow me. So let us also stand up as women and say no. Any party which is not taking our manifesto on board, we are not going to vote you. Shake them and they will be shaken. That's how we used to work. You go and say we Ackford. One time Seven said, hey, is that Ackford? Is that Matembe now with her Ackford? And I was not there. But Ackford was raising, placards saying on rally, saying no, unless you do this, we are not giving you a vote. Go and work out these placards and go and raise them at the rallies where they are making. Yes, that is my conclusion.
Yes, thank you so much, ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of yet another Tuesday afternoon show. It has been my honor to have you. Thank you for keeping with us until the end of the show. The topic regarding the Women's Manifesto is not just one that is singular or to individuals or to a specific group, to a specific gender. It is the Ugandans' agenda when we come down to it all. Women are a significant portion of Ugandan society, and if we leave them behind, we have left Uganda behind. So as we take on the 2026 election period, let us not forget to hold our leaders accountable in regards to what they are pushing and fronting for women in Uganda. This has been a lovely conversation. I look forward to having you again next Tuesday. Have a great day. My name is Turiho, Danita, and I have been your host.